I'd say give them a month or two to really catch up.
That comment that Hosty made about practice is something that Battery talked to me about as well when I talked to him this week, and that is how different it is to have practice versus open division teams as compared to HGC teams specifically. Why are you
I'm
giving
sorry,
me
I
that
had a
face?
meme. I had a meme, but I knew there was no way in the world you got it. We're talking about practice?
Oh no.
See, I'm sorry.
I know it.
Okay, I thought for sure that one was gonna go over the top, but no. So back to your point.
I'm trying to be all serious here. See what I have to work with. Yeah, he said that the biggest thing that Battery and the rest of the team has noticed is their practice is that they've gotten a whole lot more punishment.
Yeah, that they experience kind of the gap. It's funny because that is what we see. That's a team going from open division now to HGC, and the first thing they compliment is the aggression, the punishment over the mistakes they see. Conveniently enough, that's about the same thing we hear from every North American team where the first time internationally, they experience the punishment coming out. And these teams realize that learning from that and realizing that they can't get away with the same mistakes that they thought they could before really refines the machine and forces them to just be a better engine at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that has completely switched over to what Battery and the rest of Even in Death are doing when they focus on practice, focus on scrimming. They are more focused on scrimming HGC teams as much as they can because they realize now how severe that gap is and how they kind of have been thrown in the deep end. And so they really need to ramp up very quickly if they don't want, or if they want to start being able to get wins. But they do feel, again, that this match is one where even if they can't win the entire match, they do feel they can at least get their first game victory as an HGC team.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I agree with them. I think that, you know, this is the best opportunity they've had so far going up against Superstars. Superstars is a great team, but they struggle when it comes to specific decision-making. Seeing Sray move over to Flex, we talked about some of the mistakes that we see just not being comfortable on necessarily all the heroes within that role. So I think it's very realistic that they could take a game here, but it's not going to be easy. It's still a pretty big gap between the two teams.
Well, let's get into the match, the first draft, starting with Battleground Pool. And we're going to see Dragonshire as the first Battleground of our best of 5. This was picked by Superstars, but it is a Battleground favorite still of Even in Death, too.
You know, it's so weird, Dragonshire now, because in Phase 1, came out of nowhere, took over. It was the go-to for a lot of teams, but then now, post-midseason brawl, we've actually seen a lot of teams just ban it, and now it's being still picked on, you know, to the lower. It seems like the teams that, again, that experience taken away from MSB, they're like banning that. Braxis and Dragonshire are the focus, but still, as you move down the ladder, it's like Dragonshire still is going to show up here. You know, teams are putting focus into it. I don't think there's really necessarily a major thing to take from it, but it is just one of those weird trends that we see of the distance between the two, even in maps like selection.
Yeah, I think as we get further down part 1 of Phase 2, we'll see the rest of the teams catch up again to the teams that are at the top of the region, and then those teams will go to Western Clash and bring more. Yeah, they'll bring even more that they have learned, and in that way, I see our region continuing to improve further and further. Let's get into the draft for Game 1 between Even in Death and Superstars. Genji banned out from Superstars.
What is it going to put for Superstars into their ban? Do we see the task removal, or do we see any emphasis onto the Tassadar? Again, well, that's nice to see that here because, again, top 4 has put way more emphasis out of week number 1 and so far into week number 2 on the Tassadar than teams like Superstar and Even in Death. So we are seeing that that is affecting their meta as well, and Even in Death is going to lock in the Dahaka for their top.
Uther still available for Iacona if he wants that. That was a pretty big priority for Superstars last week, but we only saw one match from Superstars in all of last week, and it was the very first day. So they could have adjusted quite a lot, although we obviously know that Uther is still very strong.
Yeah, Uther is almost 100% in this rotation, I feel like, just because the, you know, we've already seen them prioritize it. But wow, they're going to move away from it into the Malthael, which, by the way, that out of yesterday was one of the weirdest things. You know, the fact that we saw the top, you know, Naventic was the only one to bust it out.
Yeah, he was completely ignored the first series.
Yeah, it just not even showing whatsoever, but it's a thing over in the European scene. We've seen every team pay some attention to it.
A little bit in Korea too, but I'll tell you, when you look at win rates in different regions, Europe by far is doing the best with Malthael.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting dynamic. especially considering, you know, the rise of power of Europe recently. Because you could argue a year ago, you'd be like, obviously, for slow, sustaining team fights, which Europe adores, that is a Malthael dream. But now they are far more effective with their initiations. Burst seems to be less realistic, but it's just maybe they're just that much better with the hero.
It may be different after today, too. Having trouble remembering how much he was played today, but I was just kind of checking out. He was played a little bit in Korea, obviously only played in the second match of North America yesterday, so we'll see how Superstars does with him here. A new Barak and Greymane, two objectively strong picks picked by Even and Death, so sticking with what we know from them, which is just generally sticking with the meta. But Ariel being a hover against them, we know that Even and Death does like to play a Vala Ariel style.
Yeah, I do like the rise of the Greymane pick there. It seems like another shift that we see out of week 1 moving into 2. Greymane is not as high as I feel like he should be, but he's definitely increasing in priority, even on maps where he doesn't necessarily stand out. You know, a map like Dragonshire, again, he's objectively powerful, but he doesn't accent it directly. And so that is going to be a nice pickup, but then the Uther Tassadar is removed, or excuse me, Uther and the Ariel has been removed. A lot of focus onto the supports. But Superstars does have the opportunity to move into the Malfurion here if they would like. New Malf is still a pretty big deal, especially, I talked about it yesterday, I love him on smaller maps with the control kind of poke that he can provide. But does it work too well with the Malthael, with the Falstad?
I think maybe Superstars would rather have Rhaegar with him, potentially. Yeah. That way they can give him that sort of burst healing.
Yeah, burst.
There's a whole lot of crowd control already against Malthael.
Yeah, just a lot of bursts. It's essentially, Malthael is kind of, when looking at what support do I want, is very melee assassin focused, right?
Yes.
Like it's just like all the Illidan's, I need somebody to keep me alive, especially when he has self-sustain, making Divine Shield that much more appealing. So you are correct in that sense, but it's just, Superstars puts more focus onto the map than I feel like a lot of teams do in North America. They like the idea of just winning through wave clear, and I think these next 2 picks, their entire draft so far is only conveying that idea, right? Gul'dan, Malfurion, Falstad, hello? Those are not top-tier picks objectively. They're all concentrating to the actual map and going to the Dragonshire, and they agree. They move into the Malfurion. But I would have preferred, I think, overall. The Rhaegar Malf, I'm still kind of torn. But now pairing it here, Superstars has committed so much into wave clear that I feel like if they don't just win through that alone, Even a Death could come back and just punish them.
I agree. There is a lot of crowd control to be able to deal with the Malthael, especially once he goes into Tormented Souls. You've got a Cocoon immediately to go with that too, but Superstars do have Mighty Gust to try to reset fights, as well as Twilight Dream and Horrify. So there are a lot of heroic abilities on Superstars fight already to try to control fights. Even in Death, last 2 picks need a support for How. Maybe another backliner, just depending on how they want to structure this out. Probably Karazim.
I mean, Rhaegar.
Could be Rhaegar too. Yeah, Rhaegar.
And the Li Ming making it here pretty low into the priority. I was wondering if it was going to be something like I could see, again, the Lunara maybe filling that role. Even without the Ariel, it's still a really high impact pick. I think we've only seen it be more and more effective all over the world. And it's a great pickup there. And to no surprise, Superstars, they committed to the map. They're only going to all in on it with that last pick there. Johanna, one of the best wave clear warriors, the best. Nah, that's not true. Royal Focus Leoric is a thing. Second best in the entire game.
But good for the 4-man specifically.
Yeah.
So Johanna to add to a very wave clear dependent composition for Superstars, looking to control the mid bot. They have Falstad as well to be able to fly up and potentially baby the Malthael, really. Malthael is so prone to being ganked by a team. So that might be an area where Even in Death can try to punish Superstars a little bit, is if Malthael steps out too far.
Yeah, and there's this weird phenomenon that kind of exists between the balance, the delicate line of how much you commit to the map and how much you actually consider into the team fighting itself. And like I said, we know the Superstars is all into that dynamic. I think that's something they can get away with against a team like Even in Death, because Even in Death, it's very forgiving to play the map. And it's not forgiving to pick those high execution type team fights. And in a map like Dragonshire, the lanes are so impactful, they usually allow you to win. So I feel like this game is going to be really hard for Even in Death. It was struggling before, but just because of their team's specific weaknesses and the strengths of Superstars, I see this game going into their favor. But if Superstars gives them one wrong fight, Even in Death really could turn it. Because the team fighting for Superstars is reasonable, but even in Death can just open it up so fast. Double reset is a thing. A new Barak, I mean, we know how good he is. Dahaka is going to be okay into the 1v1, but Maltheo is also very effective into that trade.
Yeah, he definitely is. I think it comes down to if Even in Death has the resources that they can go up and try to get those picks too in the laning phase to alleviate some of the pressure. But then there's the possibility that if they do send people up to that, they only have Dahaka as the global, who's going to be up in the top anyway. They could lose out a lot in the mid bot because of that, and Superstars could just get ahead enough to be able to just close out the game quickly. It's going to be a hard one for Even in Death, definitely, with the composition that they have.
Yeah, like it's not. It's one of the, like, they didn't draft a bad comp. Like, that's what I'm trying to get across is, like, they actually drafted pretty well. It's just when you look at what is more forgiving and then you look at the power levels of the team, if I'm Even in Death, I want the most forgiving composition possible, and that's how Superstars always drafts. And debatably, I would argue that's part of the reason Superstars remains flat in the middle of North America. Just safe enough to not actually pull away, but not risky enough to ever rise to the top.
Well, we know that Even in Death likes to draft those risky compositions.
Yes.
So we'll see how it's going to pay off for them. We're ready to go into game number 1 between Even in Death and Superstars. We're headed to Dragonshire.
And here we are. It is Dragonshire, and in the blue, we have found ourselves with Superstars. Srey is going to be onto the Gul'dan. Hosi, as always, he's repping the Falstad. Yoda is going to be the Maltheo. Iacona on Malfurion. And Urho will be on Johanna.
And in the red, the members of Even in Death. Battery playing a new Barak. Li Ming played by Lutano. We've got Rhaegar played by Hao. Up next, Dahaka played by FrozenX. And finally, Greymane played by Homicidal.
So we're going to keep track of the laning setup here for Superstars. They went into Season Markman. When I have a Johanna and my Falstad is going to be committed to the 4-man, I almost always want to go Gathering Storm. So what this says to me is Maltheo is going to be top up until 7, and then Falstad is going to be the 1v1er. I personally don't know if I like that, just because I think that Maltheo should be the more dominant one. Hold on a minute here. Srey getting a little bit of pressure here. FrozenX goes in for the drag, just sniping on Bai, and now Superstars, they lose the first member, but that Condemn.
Condemn, so good from Erho.
So very pretty, setting up one, now going to be a second kill, and that is a very offensive early game here between these teams.
Lots of fighting to kick things off there in the mid. Yeah, like you talked about, once Falstad gets Boomerang at level 7, then the swap is a possibility for Superstars to send Falstad up there to that lane. But also, maybe it's just for him to be able to sit in the mid lane, and they're going to keep it more of a 1-1-3 here.
Yeah, maybe that could be the case. Yeah, we see that is the rotation it looks like they're going to be making. So then, that is interesting dynamic, because mainly when looking at small maps, the distance between the two lanes is so close that almost always, unless you have an insane amount of kill potential into your opponent's side, which Even in Death does not have, you typically would either run a 2-1-2 to maximize your pressure, or you focus on to the 4-man, because clearing the wave is going to be faster and more effective as a 4 than it is running a 1-1-3. So interesting lane setup here for Superstars, and the punishment out of an Even in Death is near perfect here. Lutano just out of range to hit the orb, but they did get that pickup on the Gul'dan. Srey a bit out too far, and I would like to argue a lot of that's with their laning choices, why that is a thing. Yeah,
they've got the Malfurion and just Gul'dan in the bottom, and then Johanna is the one moving back and forth between the mid and the bot. The only thing I can think of is that it lets Falstad be even more mobile about where he wants to respond and show up, but so far, this has worked out in favor of Even in Death. We know that the wave clear of Superstars is what we're talking about, makes their composition so strong.
But if you're not sticking together as the 4, right, with the assumptions that we made, it's going to be, yes, Johanna, Falstad, Malfurion, and Gul'dan will one-shot a minion wave, but Falstad's off on his own, kind of side-soaking, allowing Even in Death to actually bully the mid lane. Look, this is something that should be impossible to have happen with this type of draft that Superstars has, but again, they have volunteered to it in this laning choice because of the Falstad and not rotating, committing him with to the 4. They genuinely, again, because the flight you referred to, they want it for that gank up onto top, but I just feel like they could be doing that anyways, just sticking as a 4-man instead.
Yeah, because the other 3 members, even without Falstad, have enough wave clear that you should be able to fly up and help Maltheo potentially with the gank. But at least Maltheo and getting Falstad to make a rotation to the top has let Superstars hold on to the top shrine for a while, Even in Death holding on to both. It's a scary situation for Superstars so far. Looking at Yoda's build on Malthael, once again, we have different than the Wraith Strike at level 1, getting Fear the Reaper. So having more of the activatable movement speed also allows you to be able to move through other units. So potentially, if you've got an Anubarak Burrow charging on the other side of you and trying to body block you, you can try to use that to get away.
I've played way too much Guitar Hero in my life to the point where every time I hear that talent, I just think of this. Exactly. When you scroll through the songs, every time that's the quote you hear. And you just say it, and that's all I think of in my head. Man.
Yeah, that's what I think of too.
So is he going to go with the healing reduction? This has been, he will. So this has been questionable in terms of Europe. Caldor said it's nearly a 50-50 that they've been experiencing there. But so far, out of the 3 North American games, that has been the staple. The healing reduction at level 7.
Well, it just combos so well with the rest of the build. Momentum Mori, but especially Black Harvest at level 4, once you can build that up to have the increased duration by 2 seconds. And then, of course, Tormented Souls, once you get that at 10, being able to reduce the healing so severely to make, basically, once Malthael go in with Tormented Souls, really be the Angel of Death.
Yeah, he essentially demands respect from the support's perspective. You know, the entire team has to go in, get the kill onto him, and then he goes, hasn't been 4 seconds yet because otherwise my heals are legitimately, it feels like near useless depending on, especially if you're dropping the Ancestral. That is not a cooldown you want to risk.
Yeah, Hao has to watch out for that.
Also, going into the Feral Heart at level 4 indicates it's not going to be that Tidal Waves there at 13. The more I look at Tidal Waves Rhaegar, I just feel like it should be the standard. Unless there's a melee assassin, I really need to enable, like an Illidan, especially like into the Malthael. I know that 50% healing is going to suck, but at least you can cycle another rotation of the Tidal Wave of your Q. It's not impossible with Feral Heart, it's just less likely. I can understand the argument, though, on a map like Dragonshire to go, I can still go Tidal Waves while taking the Feral Heart for your 4-man.
There is Airho needing to pop Iron Skin, but with all of the crowd control there, Even in Death are quick to pounce afterward and get a kill.
Yeah, everything I said about this game before it started is just flat out not true. Mainly because Superstar's laning rotation and Even in Death is getting the punishment. I thought there was no way. Because, again, the lack of a 4-man, Superstars is not winning the laning phase nearly as dominantly as I feel like they should be with this type of draft. And now I'm like, where does Superstars win the game? Because this should be already a 1 Dragonite into the favor of Superstars, maybe a half-level advantage at this point in time. The fact that Even in Death's winning an experience is insane.
Yeah, it is very strange to see how this early game has started out, and we have to remember that for Superstars, this is a team that is largely momentum-based. They like to be ahead in the game,
yeah.
Otherwise things become more panicked for them as a team. They were ahead looking at their match versus No Tomorrow, I believe, and they were ahead on Cursed Hollow and then ended up losing later on to that too. So there are openings where Even in Death could punish, but that's what I believe that Even in Death would have to do versus Superstars. But here, Even in Death are ahead.
Yeah, a full level ahead. It's not even just like, oh, look at you're remaining even in a game you should be falling behind. It's like you're actually dictating pace, tone, tempo of this match. You're getting a fort before your opponent seems to be dominating your front walls. Everything falling apart now for Superstars, and Even in Death is just capitalizing on every misplay.
But now heroic abilities are there, and for Malthael, that is a huge thing. And Yoda's starting to collapse on the team, goes in, catches. We've got Blessed Shield going down. There's the Tormented Souls on top of Fortify. Hao in a terrible position, but does get out in time, trying to keep the heals up for his team. Homicidal receives the Ancestral Healing.
Oh, that gust to be able to buy a bit of breathing room allows Yoda to be able to get that retreat. Even in Death does still stand, though. They got the fort. Nobody ended up going down, and almost all heroics traded across the board. So Superstars Iacona is the only one with the Twilight Dream up. Man, this entire, just how these fights are playing out, how this game is playing out is so not what I expected. So now I'm trying to figure out, where does this change for Superstars? How do they force it to? Even that last team fight, with an initiation onto a Rhaegar like that, where you get the Horrify, the split, like that should be a dead Rhaegar.
Absolutely.
So now, but Superstars drafted for the macro. They failed in that dynamic, at least failed to get the proper amount of pressure outward. And their team fight was going to struggle. So now I'm like, you flanked with a Malthael Johanna, which is typically my biggest complaint, is you approach it left or right. You have to flank with those heroes, and they still couldn't get the kill. So now it's just got to be better focus fire. Something has to break here for Superstars. or again, I feel like Even in Death is going to get their first win at HGC North America.
That was the first approach with the composition. So hopefully we'll see Superstars make those kinds of adjustments. But Even in Death stayed alive through that. They also used a lot of heroic abilities. But Even in Death continues to have the experience lead now, about to get 13.
With the 13 Talontier, let's see if it's the Tidal Waves. I'm guessing it is.
Yeah.
It is gonna be Tidal Waves, huh? I would have liked to, again, I still like the argument of the Q, but I would rather you see Feral Heart into the Tidal Waves than no Tidal Waves at all, especially into the Mouth Hail. Getting a second rotation of your Q to be able to counter after you have the healing reduction, because let's be honest here, though Mouth Hail does have AoE healing reduction, there's no way you can say, well, I just shouldn't heal. Like, you just can't, or your team will, in fact, die. Another thing to consider with Mouth Hail in that level 7 is that is a huge buff to Storm Shield, because it's not going to direct shielding, and Storm Shield is a colossal percentile shield.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
suddenly level 20 Rhaegar, where I would go Rewind, I go, no, I'm into a Mouth Hail, I want Storm Shield. It's just something to think about, you know, something that came to light here on my brain over looking at this match. But Even in Death has an objective pushing there with the Giants. They've got control over the bottom altar, and top is going to be a Dahaka and a Falstad matchup, which Dahaka is comfortable with. So still keeping the tempo and forcing Superstars to react.
Looking at the level 13, everything seems normal for me, except seeing Cannoneer on Li Ming, not getting Illusionist to be able to give you the safety, the increased safety with your Calamity, the increased range and the ability to get it if you lose a lot of health. So what do you think of the Cannoneer here from Lutano?
I mean, oh, wait a minute here. Stray just ate a full Curse Bullet. The Ancestral does land. Now it's going to be a retreat. Nice drag. That is now Falstad down, but the Mouth Hail work. You see Yoda trying to get that damage output there, but with everybody else so low, Yoda can't move in.
Nope, and here's going to be the counter. Battery dives in too and is there with the rest of the team. Mouth Hail goes down, 2 kills for Even in Death. They already hold both of the shrines. This is going to be another Even in Death Dragon Knight.
Yeah, and like I said, where does it stop? I don't actually think it's possible, really, just with how Even in Death has managed to play this early game. It's just Superstars has to find this weird win condition. But again, the fact that they have a wave clear map and they fought over the shrine they don't desire, which I always talk about how that is a end game here for a map like Dragonshire, shows that they are just not able to abuse the strength of their composition well enough to be able to get that momentum over Even in Death. Iacona actually missing the Twilight Dream there is just adding salt to what is a sad, sad circumstance to watch.
Well, Even in Death focused on opening up the battleground. They took out the mid fort. They're actually going to rotate up and even just take down the top fort. That enables them to more efficiently and easily hold on to the shrines in the next shrine phase. And they just don't have that much health left on the Dragon Knight. See what Mouth Hail can do to that too. So he's going to focus what he could there. But the rest of the team wants to split here in the bottom. Airhost snips it out.
So Dragon Knight goes down. What is Even Death going to do? Again, they have that level and a half advantage. And we talked all yesterday about the aggression and seeing more aggression in North America. Here's going to be the Giant Camp. I want to see if they push more with this, like bottom front wall, for instance. Enable these Giants, escort them in. That is what Even in Death's going to do. Gilly. I'm so happy to see this here from Even in Death, a team as young as them to be like, you know what, screw it, even with this camp, they've got the anchor there with Battery, perfect positioning, and yes, this isn't going to make or break this game, but at least they aren't just sitting back and allowing Superstars to get free experience.
They have had a lot of time and a lot of resources to learn from on how to approach Dragonshire. Yeah, utilizing this 16 is wonderful. They did significant damage to the bottom towers, the bottom gate, 4 Superstars pushed them away. There are some scary heroics to try to siege into, specifically a Fly Gust behind them could be really scary, as well as a Horrify setting up wrong. Even though Superstars don't have 16, if they land one of those heroics right, it could undo everything that Even in Death has done in this game.
Yeah, sieging into a Falstad is about one of the scariest things. Stitches and Falstad are the 2 heroes I think I fear the most every time they walk up to my, or I'm walking up to their fort. The Stitches is like, even if I get this keep, you might hook me afterwards. And then the Falstad is always just like, oh man, he's going to kill us all, isn't he? Yep, the minion wave's dead, and so am I. But now, Even in Death, they have got the Night Camp pressure out. It looks like Superstars is going to mirror that. And with the 16 talents here, and now 25 seconds away from the next Dragon Knight phase, Superstars has to win this next fight. They really do, because The map is getting too pressured against them at this point, and on Dragonshire, you can't let that happen.
Oh wow, no Memento Mori from Yoda on his mouth. They at 16 instead getting Soul Collector, which reduces the cooldown of your Soul Grip and also increases its range. So maybe in this case, because he is paired with the Malfurion trying to have more health, Yoda in trouble.
Oh man, but you see
Cocoon immediately after that.
And the Ancestral, look at the anti-healing done by the Malthael there. Battery received an Ancestral, and his health just did not move. Oh man, Superstars managed to get this bottom altar. The Night Camp and eventually getting the pressure up on top. Even in Death, again showing, grabbing camps with a purpose, keeping pressure up at all times.
But Dread, at least even in Death, have made sure that Tormented Souls is already down. So Tormented Souls is down. That's a huge ability for Yoda to be able to stay alive. Sray's in trouble. Sray's down.
No Horrify able to be used either. He is killed before what was going to be a miracle Horrify was available. And now, Frozen X, I believe, should have his burrow out off cooldown soon. But the fact that he isn't using it, I guess I'm wrong on that. So that is going to be now the members of... There it is. He goes up on top. And now a Dragonite here for Even in Death. There's two options Even in Death have with a Dragonite at this stage in the game. One is committed to top lane and 4-man push through bottom. The other is to commit to Haka up to top and then 4-man through bottom with the Dragonite. Personally, I like the Dragonite split push on top, but that's a new thing in Dragonshire, specifically out of SEA in China. They gave us a pretty solid lesson on the mid-game Dragonites. But this is now a safer route, and one at least they're looking to prioritize into the strongest lanes, abuse their advantage. It's just whether or not Superstars gets the fight 320. You see Falstad and Johanna looking to get the flank. Nice anchoring there, once again, from Frozen X.
Anchoring from Frozen X. Homicidal is Greymane, so that's Greymane inside of the Dragonite. Frozen X Battery making sure to push back any potential flanks from Superstars, specifically that Johanna Blessed Shield. Homicidal steps in again along with the minions, trying to take down. Blessed Shield is out. Airho's in the back. Lutano jumping away, using teleport. The rest of the team dealing with Airho while the Dragonite dispenses of the keep.
Yeah, now that's a keep down. 20 advantage will be picked up as this turret gets dropped. Homicidal still alive there. He moves up. Oh man, it's just a tick away. They go in for the kill. They're gonna try and end the game here. This is 15 minutes in, 5 versus 4. At least they're posturing, dabbling, looking for a couple of spells to see if they can get a pick. You see that, man, that corruption. Nice root from Iacona actually denying the burrow. Yoda goes in. They're going to try and force, but the drag, the punishment, and the Horrify is too late, Gilly.
And a Storm Shield, too, just like you called it, being able to keep the team nice and healthy despite a lot of people being hit by that initial Tormented Souls. Even in Death, starting to move on forward, knowing there's 10 seconds until Johanna is back. They really want to use this 20 to take out the core to get their first win in HGC.
But when Johanna's alive, she's going to have the Blessed Shield. This is, you know, Even in Death showing the aggression, but is it too much too fast? The shields are now down on the core. Twilight Dream smashes the members of Even in Death, and now with 3 up, they realize they're second-guessing this core call.
Frozen X is gone. I would be second guessing it. How trying desperately to run away with his life, but the slow from hammering is too much. Lutano's in the back.
Lutano should honestly just go and die as fast as possible. I know I say that, and it sounds so rude, but it hits a point into the later stages of the game that just staggering a death and delaying it is only increasing the odds at which your opponent's going to end. If you know you're all going to wipe, run to the core and just be like, take me, because I need to be alive as fast as possible on the other side of the map.
All right, so let's look at what Superstars can do with this amount of time. They need to start opening up the battleground. They have not yet taken down a single fort. They have all of their members. They've gotten their 22, so they're starting to work on taking down the fort in the bot.
So what is going to be is a little bit of pressure, not even. Just take the Knights, or so you take Giants, you take Knights, you take Giants. Falstad takes top immediately. Sray or Urho should get onto bottom immediately and take a free Dragonite. The second it spawns, while you cycle the Knight pressure through bottom. Falstad soloing that will be a little bit late to the party. Late enough that actually Even in Death might be able to delay. So I like the fact actually he gave it up. He's going to rotate out. This is smart here. So an immediate Dragonite. Just a little less pressure than I was hoping to see up on bottom because of the slow transition. But Superstars, they've got 20. They've got a late game Dragonite. And they managed to get the fort. So it's realistic for them to go to this bottom keep and possibly pick that up for themselves.
Both Iacona and Yoda are holding on to their Storm Talents too. No one can stop death is a possibility for Malthael, but not necessarily what he wants to get if he thinks that he can be able to end it with this push right here. And we've got Astral Communion. That is the new talent for Malfurion, being able to, it increases the duration of the silence of Twilight Dream, but also you channel, and then it's sort of the bolts Twilight Dream together.
Gonna see how much impact that can have. Look at Stray, man. Receives so much pressure there so early on, and you know, he's new to the role, working on that flex. We've seen him on a couple of melees. We see him on range here, but even in death is definitely not letting his, you know, new mistakes and mispositions to just kind of go. They're like, you know what? We realize he might be a weak spot, and we're going to try and capitalize on every single mistake he has, which is why you see a lot of the Dahaka just going like, where is Srey? Where's the Gul'dan? Granted, he's a good kill target, but they're blatantly trying to pick on him.
Yeah, and even in death, obviously they are our new team at HGC, but this team has been playing together for a long time. All the way through phase 1, they've made it here. So they have the kind of synergy that even a team like Superstars doesn't have yet.
Yeah, so let's see Frozen X. He's got the movement speed just out of drag range, not going to land that one. There is a lot of camps out. That's going to be the epic mount used there by Hosty as he goes to soak up onto mid. And the members of Superstars, just they're going to retreat out, get some pressure onto the map. Ah, man, I don't mind this rotation. I feel like it's a little bit safe just because Superstars is now trying to bank the global on global, the Dahaka into the Falstead, but Falstead wins that now. So even in death, now has to dictate the pace. Why I say Falstead wins that is Falstead went into Epic Mount. We don't see that on the side of Dahaka. He's not going into the Apex Predator.
Yeah, he got Contagion instead. Which
allows for now Superstars should be able to dictate the rotations over it. And top is the most valuable because both teams lose the keeps on bottom. So the fight on bottom is going to be the one that decides the game. And I would have liked to see even in death try and force before the next Dragon Knight phase so they aren't forced into that awkward, oh gosh, we can't keep up with their epic mount. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just slow it down, stick to the fight you know you can get, not the one that you hope you can get.
Now they have to make that brush stock work when it comes in. Right now they're just trying to clear out the big mercenary push on the bottom lane, while Hosty does the same in the top, getting the bruisers. So now Superstars can go back down into the bottom lane and be ready for that.
So this is it. Yeah, this is the exact circumstance I'm talking about. So now even in death, almost 100% chance they have to take a fight on the bottom, and Superstars will have the top shrine, and Falstead would be able to move its way down. And again, you could argue, well, then Dahaka can go match him, but then Falstead's cooldown is legitimately like 30 seconds shorter, and that 30-second window is not something you can take on a rotation like Dragonshire this late. The death timers are almost 70 seconds. That was scary. Don't do it better.
It's still scary. It's still scary.
Lutana found him.
There we go.
It's not the normal flashlight we're used to seeing, like, you know, with the Johanna, but I like that one. You know, it's a little bit more straightforward, but it definitely has brighter light. And, you know,
like a laser pointer.
This is going to be insane. Falstead, if Falstead rotates bottom and they take this fight on the bottom, Falstead has, again, the advantage in global. There's no world where Superstars should take the disadvantage fight.
They're heading up.
Falstead should be rotating bottom, and then everybody else go top, because you know even in death wants to cycle that out.
Falstead spotted on top.
Frozen X is looking to match him even. At least dabbling.
They're sending Li Ming up. Trying to deal with the bruisers, because he had to get on the point. Okay, Falstead's going to fly to the mid.
And they got to pick.
All right.
So now, 60 seconds down a man, down the global advantage as well. Even though we saw, again, Hosty using the epic mount. They go to take the fight up onto top.
Frozen, gets the drag, how's there two? Homicidal goes in, silence, and he's deleted thanks to the
look at
isolation.
The 20. Look at the 20, he's back. Yoda snap picked it. I don't even know the official name yet. What is that thing?
No one can stop death.
No one can stop death.
But
Yoda's,
if they kill him again.
Yes, then if they kill him again, it's going to be an increased death timer, and that is not what Superstars want to. I mean, don't get me wrong, even in Death's Punishment was absolutely flawless there, really beautiful, but I still liked just, you know, Yoda was snap locks.
He held that for a really long time.
Yeah. So now, still 15 seconds. Again, Superstars with the global advantage that they had, the fact that this Dragon Knight has not been picked up yet.
That rotation, oh, Li Ming went down, stopped with an orb, Greymaine's on top. They've done it. Li Ming has to live.
Blessed Shield was used too. Oh, they have to. They have to get that pick. They do. Another staggered death once more here by Superstars, punishing even in death rotations. And that is honestly a perfect case of the global argument. Like
global.
when you lack the global, hold on here, Yoda forces another one.
So he's got his Tormented Souls going on. Homicidal gets out, but Horrify has hit. Rhaegar is now down 2. Superstars is finding all of the stagger deaths they need to try to get the Dragon Knight to close out this game. 23 minutes, 30 seconds into game number 1.
So what is going to happen here? Anubarak is going to show up on top. Greymane waiting to the side. There's going to be Epic Mount. Dahak is going for the walking rotation through bottom. He should be able to pick that up. So this actually, even in death, can stall again. What I would have liked to see, we've seen about a minute and a half of staggered deaths, which is not uncommon, again, on a map like Dragonshire into globals this late on. But what I wanted more than I feel like anything here. Hold up. Are they going to get this Dragon Knight?
Yes.
I wanted to see a team do exactly what we just saw there. Anubarak goes in, he knows it's going to be a limited amount of people, delay, and then back out and not risk any form of a staggered death when the Dragon Knight couldn't end the game 100%. This is a 24-minute Dragon Knight.
Right. That
ends the game 100% now, unless you have a colossal misplay.
Yeah, even in death, if they can try to take the fight behind the Dragon Knight, and this is Stray who is inside here.
Yeah, that's actually a lot of damage they don't have on core. If Falstad dies, that's enough to where they might not be able to end this game. And Stray's taking way too much free damage before he gets to core.
He has taken a ton of damage, goes in for a punt. Airbow off the side, trying to take down Homicidal, who throws out first bullet. Now, Superstars are getting onto the core. Shielding is down.
It's so very low there, and look at Stray wailing away, 70 and counting. Urho is going to fall very low, but he's got the level 20. It does not matter there. That is going to be GG going over to Superstars. But wow, what a fight out of Even in Death.
Same thing against Tempo Storm on Dragonshire. Even in Death played Dragonshire very, very well. It just came down to the globals, like we talked about, into the late game and the staggered deaths that took place whilst Even in Death were trying desperately to keep Superstars from being able to get that Dragon Knight.
The one thing that really is just so hard for me to try and break down is that probably about 15 minutes on in that game was almost exactly what you would expect from Superstars. Maybe a couple seconds behind, maybe not as far into, like, again, with the Merc pressure I was suggesting, but in general, that was what you would expect for a Dragonshire at that stage of the game. But the first 10 minutes, anything but for their comp. How does that happen? Because usually it's the exact opposite way around. Most teams get it and they're like, you know, stick in the game is exactly what you'd expect for at least 3 minutes until a death happens, and then everything falls apart. But not for Superstars. Somehow it took a while, and then eventually they got it together and was like, you know what? We actually know how to run this.
Yeah, it was very weird to see them not try to take the best things, the things that we saw from their composition, the fact that they had Johanna, Gul'dan, Malfurion, and be able to have this insane, perfect wave clear. Instead, wanting to have Falstad, I don't know if maybe they felt like they needed to have Falstad in mid so that he could respond just right away if Malthael needed help. I'm not sure.
I honestly don't know either, but it is just, it's one of those things where it's like not necessarily that I have a yes, no on, it's just one of like, that is really weird and it kind of breaks my brain and I gotta highlight it.
Do you think that Contagion was worth it, being able to have the area of effect isolation for Dahaka? Because in that instance, when you know that you are up against a Falstad who is most likely going to take Epic Mount, and once those level 20 Storm talents for globals come in, they completely change how Dragonshire's played.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a fan. Like, if I pick the global, globals are good early game on Dragonshire. They're decent in the mid game, and they're great into the late. So when they actually scale with the map and throughout the time itself, yeah, I'm going to only want to spec more into my global as time moves on. So I like, if it hits a 20 mark and I have a huge upgrade on the cooldown, there's very few heroes that I would not go in to select that. I mean, you know, like one would be like an outlier would be like something like a Zag, and thinking about Nidus Network and be like, oh, I've got to upgrade that. And be like, you know, maybe not that wild.
Slow down.
But yeah, so I would definitely have liked to see that. You know, isolation level 20 isn't necessarily that high impact on its own, and then considering the map, and then you need to match another global, I really would have liked to see a different 20.
All right, well, we are one game into this series now. We're going to check out the Battleground pool once again.